Good evening. I'd like to call the March 6th, 2023 evening session of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners to order. Welcome those who are here. Welcome those who are watching us on the YouTube live stream. And I will say that traditionally in the mornings we start with the prayer and the pledge, so we will not do that again tonight, but just for those who wonder about a prayer and a pledge, we do that in the morning session. So with that, I will open it up for the first item on the agenda, and that is approval and discussion of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move the agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of approval of the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Agenda is approved. Next up, we have public comments. I will say this is a chance for any member of the audience to come forward and address the board for 3 minutes on an item that is not already on the agenda. We ask that you identify yourself by your name and where you are from. That could be town or township, does not have to be specific address. We ask that you address the board at all times in a courteous manner, civil manner, and that you maintain proper decorum. We also remind you and this board that this is an opportunity for the board to listen and not to engage in discussion or debate with the public, but is an opportunity for you to present your thoughts and concerns to us. So with that, I will open it up, and anyone wishing to speak, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Ben Chapman. I'm from Raleigh, but I've been working in Smithfield for the last over 3 years now. And I wanted to thank you for listening to me tonight, and in particular, thank Chairman Butch Lauder. Meeting you by chance last week really gave me the motivation I needed to put the finishing touches on these remarks and come here to introduce this nonpartisan grassroots campaign to the Board of Commissioners. I'm here to advocate for Johnston County to adopt an inclusive non-discrimination ordinance. These laws have been passed in Orange, Buncombe, Chatham, Durham, Mecklenburg, and Wake counties. Currently, 22 communities in North Carolina have such protections. And they've been in place without controversy or major issue for a few years now. Discrimination is treating somebody differently because of who they are. And what I propose is that Johnston County prohibit discrimination in public accommodations, employment, and housing. I would submit the Wake Ordinance as an example of a thoroughly researched and well-modeled solution. After 1 year, WARL News reported, quote, out of 21 complaints, only 5 qualified under the NDL, end quote. It was similar in Buncombe County when they approached their first anniversary of their ordinance with 17 complaints, none of which was found to be actual violations of the ordinance. With a population about 1/5 of Wake and other factors being equal, Johnston County might see a single valid complaint over the course of 1 year, or there might not be any. The Campaign for Southern Equality and Equality NC have a statewide effort that they call NC is Ready. So the full thought being North Carolina is ready for non-discrimination protections. I thought it was appropriate to call this local effort JOCO is Ready. I want to emphasize that this is a nonpartisan campaign. I recently met with the president of the Young Republicans of Johnston County and the president of the Young Democrats of Johnston County. And each of them seemed to understand my strong desire to ensure that this doesn't become a dividing issue. I truly believe that we can come together as Johnstonians on this. As I conclude, I wanted to share a little bit about myself. It wasn't always easy growing up gay in North Carolina. When I was in the Boy Scouts of America, they had a national discriminatory ban on openly gay scouts. I came to the realization that if I wanted to achieve the rank of Eagle, that I had to keep part of myself secret from everyone and hide it from the world. I'm now a proud gay Eagle Scout, and I'm glad that the BSA reversed course on this ban in 2015. One final personal remark. When I came out to my parents, I'll never forget that my mother was worried. I wanted to know why. She told me she didn't care one way or another, but she was concerned about how people would treat me out in the world. So What I want you to think about is mothers and fathers who don't want their children treated differently because of who they are. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, seeing no one moving towards the podium, and Madam Clerk, we didn't have any other emails. Okay. All right, with that, we will move on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. And I will say, if anyone is here for the rezoning on Gordon Road, that case has been withdrawn. So if you're here for that, you feel free to leave or stay with us, either one, but we'll move on. The first case we have tonight is case 2234, and conditional zoning district hearing. And I will ask our director to come forward and present information on that case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. Your first case this evening is case 22-34. This is a petition to rezone 66.11 acres across 3 tracts located on Williford Road at 608 to 722 Williford Road in Bentonville Township from agriculture residential to industrial to conditional zoning. Owner is K Farms Incorporated. Applicant is Blue Water Sand and Gravel. The conditional rezoning request involves a specified use for a sand pit, which is in our ordinance is defined as earthworks or earth extraction. The existing or surrounding land uses and zoning are AR and used for agriculture and residential purposes, and I-2 SUD, which is a legacy zoning district, and this is a sand pit or a sand mine operation immediately across the road, and there is one also down the road just to the east, south and east. You'll see also there's a list of conditions. The majority of those conditions, or almost all of those conditions, are prescribed by our ordinance for these types of operations. Traffic concerns in this area, Wilford Road sees about 150 vehicles per day, and this is a 2015 count, and it does not appear on our CTV as needing improvement. The property is classified as an agricultural rural conservation area in accordance with our land use plan. Staff would be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Newton? All right. Then is there anyone else here that wishing to speak to this case? The applicant, yes, please.
Good evening. My name is James Izell. I'm from Garner, North Carolina, and I am a consultant to Blue Water. Do their some of their environmental and permitting and that sort of thing. So I drew up the plan for this particular site, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have as far as that goes.
Any questions for Mr. Izell? And the 13 conditions that you're agreeable to, or on behalf of the owner, you're agreeable to those?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I suppose you're meeting all your setbacks for repairing buffers and...
Yes, sir. I think the county fellow was out there several weeks ago and confirmed that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this case? All right, if not, I will close the public discussion and call for Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board's recommendations.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As it relates to case 22-34, Planning Board does recommend approval of the conditional zoning with the stated 13 conditions and those prescribed conditions within our ordinance, and submit for your consideration a statement of consistency.
All right.
What was staff's recommendation?
That was a typo, so that should be approval.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. I was concerned about it.
All right, and I will say, I know there's a state mining permit that
Yes, sir.
we require to meet all the conditions of that, so that will be in addition to any approvals that we give tonight, so. All right, and I've already asked the question of the applicant if they agree to the final conditions, and they have. So I will now close the hearing, and I'll turn it over to the board for any additional discussion and/or motions.
That whole road through there is going to be sand pits, keeps on.
I don't think there's any residents anywhere
No,
close
there's
by.
not. I used to own some land in there.
Anyone care to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the request to adopt the statement of consistency resolution as presented in the agenda packet and approve the rezoning request with the conditions as discussed. If there are changes to the conditions, those need to be made, but I don't know of any now.
You have no changes. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next up, we have case 2302. And I will open the rezoning hearing for that and ask Mr. Newton to give us a background on that.
Sir, thank you. Case 2302 involves a petition to rezone 61/100ths of an acre located at 236 Dansart Drive in Cleveland Township from office and institutional to general business. The owner is Stephen Cornegay. The applicant is Wayman Tucker. The existing land use is the land is currently vacant. Surrounding land uses and zoning are agricultural and residential when used for such purposes. Office and institutional and also vacant, and then general business, and this is a currently used for such uses as dance studio, storage facility, and auto repair. Traffic concerns along Cleveland Road. Cleveland Road is rated at 12,000, receives 12,000 vehicles per day, and this is a 2020 count, and it does show up on our comprehensive transportation plan as needing improvement. This property is in a primary growth area as per our land use plan. This is a straight rezoning, just to remind you of that, and be glad to answer any questions you may have.
What are some of the examples of what's on the list for general business? Nature of those?
It's going to cover your retail, retail office space, medical office, could be service-oriented.
Gas stations?
Gas stations, convenience stores, yes, sir.
Do we know the applicant's intent? And will they access off of Cleveland, or will it be access from Dansart Drive, I'm assuming?
Most likely, I'm going to go out on a limb and say DOT will require access from Dansart Drive.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Newton, and now we'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is John Adcock. I'm with the Adcock Law Firm at Fuquay Verena. I represent the applicant. Glad to address any questions regarding access. There is a map on record that was a recombination map that got access to Dansart Drive. So there's potentially 2 access points. But during the site plan process, obviously that'll be vetted by the planning department. So I'm glad to answer any questions.
All right, any questions?
You don't know of any specific plans at this point in time for what will go there?
I think what's being put under consideration is like a coffee shop, drive-up coffee shop.
Right.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Adcock? All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to this case, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Samuel Harris, and I live on Cleveland Road. And is this about the Cornwallis? Okay, this is when you say Cleveland, I thought that was it. Okay.
All right. I think we'll hear from you later then, huh?
Oh, yes.
All right, anyone else wishing to speak to this case 2302? I did want to say we did receive an email from Aaron Durden that had some questions, and were specifically related to, is it going to be a gas station or specific uses? And at this time, and it's just general rezoning for general business, so did want to acknowledge the receipt of that email. All right, seeing no one else coming forward, I'm going to close the public discussion portion of the hearing and call on Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board's recommendation.
Yes, sir, as it relates to case 23-02, the planning board does recommend approval and offers a statement of consistency for your consideration.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Okay. On the general business, are there any stated normal business hours?
No, sir.
Operating hours?
There are not.
Okay.
Question as well. How much authority would the planning department have over where the access is and what type of business will be there?
That'll be handled through our TRC, our internal review, when they provide a site plan so they can propose. And yes, we do have the ability to restrict access on Cleveland Road.
Okay.
Even if DOT would permit, we can still do that.
That would just be one of my biggest concerns, that, and with it backing up to a residential area, what uses would be permitted. Although general business is very broad, I think it would be, beneficial if we knew exactly what that use was going to be to protect those residents.
I tend to agree with you. An all-night service station there, and it's heavily residential all around there. I'm not opposed to rezoning it general business if I knew what business it was going to be.
I think a coffee shop would do very well there, but
Yeah,
again,
well.
I share the same concerns over another storage facility or a gas station.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the board for their further deliberation or entertain a motion.
Bryson, is this a point where we could put restrictions that they have to access it from Dansart Drive? Okay. No conditions? Okay.
Not in a general use district rezoning,
Yeah, I think if what you're looking for to be
Conditional.
to conditional zoning, so.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt statement consistency resolution as presented in the agenda packet and approve rezoning request for case 2302.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second? All right, hear no second. Motion dies. So there's only one other motion to be made. So who wants to?
Mr. Chairman,
make that?
I move to adopt a statement of consistency resolution that this use is not in the public interest, since we don't know what it's going to be, and further that the use is not consistent with the comprehensive land use plan, and deny the request as presented.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Can we not ask that we make a motion to approve a conditional?
No, they need to bring that. That's conditional. All right, so we have a motion. Did I hear a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the denial. Any other discussion on that?
Well, I was just curious, when we moving down the road, I understand that we would be curious to understand why or what is going there. But I don't understand why all of a sudden we're going down that road. That's part of the statement of consistency.
My thinking is because of, if you look at an overview of the whole place, it's just so heavily residential all around it. It's not like it's out in the country, in the rural areas. And there's a possibility it could be very detrimental to the quality of life of all those people around there.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Commissioner, but, we're not in the business of dictating businesses. We don't pick and choose what could be successful and what can't not be, that's,
That's true, but there's a zoning already there,
yeah.
and it's consistent with the neighborhood.
So,
I'm just saying, if we go down this road, we go down this road, but.
so Bryson, for my clarification, because it's currently zoned off OI,
Yes.
that means you couldn't put a coffee shop or retail type of business there, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
But I also feel like if we can dictate that they will have to come off Dance Art Drive, that will deter anyone from putting a gas station in where you have to drive through the parking lot of a dance studio. So, I mean, I think I think Commissioner Godwin and I share that same concern that we want, some sort of normalcy, but there's no doubt that that entire strip of Cleveland Road is going to be commercial. So I feel like a coffee shop would do well there. I had a hard time with leaving it a little bit blanket open, but again, I would probably go back and
I remember,
vote for.
I remember not too long ago, when there was an uprising, when there was a rumor that there was going to be a Hardee's up there somewhere.
Yeah.
And so they didn't really come before us and dictate to us what it was. It was just a rumor it was going to be a Hardee's. Ended up being a Hardee's. People were against Hardee's, not against fast food. But I disagree with it, but hey, this is the board's decision.
And I'm going to make a comment. I think that was before we had conditional zoning. I think it was straight rezoning when that case came before us. But I do see we have an obligation to take a look at and protect the publics around there, in addition to being able to provide for the applicant an opportunity. But I think when I look at it in the public interest, I can't say this in the public interest or not at this point, because I think it's wide open, and I do have concerns about the residential residents in the area. So,
How many spoke against it at the planning board?
None.
How many spoke here tonight?
none. Well, yeah,
One.
we almost had one.
One written.
Yeah, one written. I'm sorry. Yeah.
But it was with regards to making sure that it was something that would not be suitable, and I feel like we've kind of already squashed that if we can determine that they're not going to have access off Cleveland Road.
Mr. Chairman, just a little comment. Our burden or duty here in approving this zoning is that we would be okay with any use allowed in general zoning if we approve this. The applicant has the option, if he wants to take that burden away and to use it for a specific use, can file for conditional zoning. So the applicant had that chance. The applicant didn't do that. So what the applicant is asking us to do is approve this zoning in this residential neighborhood that any use in general business would be okay on this property.
Thank you for summarizing that for us. So with that said, we've had a motion and a second, and we'll go ahead and call for the vote on that. All in favor of the motion for denial, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion for denial passes. All right, next up we have case 2303. It is conditional zoning district hearing, and I will open that hearing now and call on Mr. Newton to present the case background and answer any questions we may have. So.
Yes, sir. Case 23-03 is petition to rezone 5.03 acres located at 15110 NC 39 Highway in O'Neill's Township from agriculture residential to general business conditional zoning district. The owner is Jose Asensio, and the applicant is the same. The conditional zoning request is specifically for a commercial and residential landscape supply sales. The current use, the land is vacant, and the surrounding land uses and zoning is AR and used for agriculture and residential purposes. NC 39 is noted as having 5,200 vehicles per day, and this is a 2021 count, and it does appear on our comprehensive transportation plan as a boulevard needing improvement. The property is located in a primary growth area in accordance with our land use plan. You will see there are 14 stated conditions that were put forth for your consideration as well.
All right, any questions for Mr. Newton? Hold on one second. Well, I'll let you give you a minute in a minute. So, any other questions for Mr. Newton? All
At
right.
this point, excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
at this point, we don't know if DOT will require a turn lane, do we?
That is correct. We do not know yet.
All right, and at this time, I would ask the applicant to come forward and present anything regarding this request.
Good evening. My name is Julie Spriggs. I'm with CAA Engineers. I'm their land planner. And what you have before you tonight is a list of the proposed conditions. The applicant does agree to all 14 conditions. During the planning board meeting, there was some discussion that I'd like to go over with you. It might take a few moments of your time. One of the concerns was the growth area and the traffic safety for the area. This is a primary growth corridor, as just stated, and the traffic safety, a TIA was not required at this time because the business is so small. It does not generate 100 trips or more to trigger that TIA requirement for you to study that tonight. However, with the site, TIA may be required as part of the driveway permit, so we will work with the NCDOT, and that is one of the conditions, that if part of the driveway permit process requires a TIA, we will, of course, submit for that study. And if a turn lane is required, we will, of course, comply with that as well. And so that is a proposed condition we are willing to comply with. And as it is along the growth corridor, you're going to expect growth in this area, whether it is our rezoning case or it's somebody else's. And so before you tonight, it is a conditional zoning permit, so we do have those conditions in place. Some of the other comments were there was concern about pesticides or chemicals being stored on site or used on site. This is a small landscaping business for residential purposes. So it would be residential owners coming with their pickup trucks or their small pull-behind trailers to get their mulch and their pine straw. This is not going to be a chemical storage place for treatment of the lawns. This is going to be just for the general landscaping beautification. The other concern was the large trucks coming onto site. We are not proposing that the large semi-trucks be delivery trucks, and we are not expecting semi-trucks to pull in site to fill up their cabins with the landscape materials such as the mulch or the pine straw. We are expecting this to be a small residential business only with, as I said, the pickups with the small pull-behind trailer or just the pickups in general where the material will be put onto the bed of the truck owner and then taken off-site. So we are not expecting large turning trucks to be turning into this. The concern was there's a little bit of a dip in that road. They were calling it a saddleback. It is a small dip. It is not a huge kind of steep slope, but it is a little bit of a dip. There was any traffic concerns, we will be working with NCDOT to relay those concerns and to do whatever we need to do on the site to make sure those concerns are addressed. And that is some of the comments that we had from the planning board, and we are here to answer any questions. The applicants are also here as well. I'm speaking them for the night, but if you have anything that you would like to ask the owners directly, they are here for those questions. And again, we do agree to all proposed conditions. And thank you for your time.
Any questions for Ms. Briggs?
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking at these conditions, and item 4 says no site lighting will be installed except for security lighting on the building to ensure the security of property and the safety of persons entering or exiting the facility. And then item 14 says any lighting will be dark sky or down lighting so as not to shine onto adjacent property. So is there going to be lighting? Is there not going to be lighting? I mean, do they anticipate lighting?
Yeah, our proposed conditions, we had several proposed conditions for the application ourselves. And then from TRC, the TRC added some conditions for that review. As part of our application process, I think it's page 38 on your agenda, are 4 conditions that we proposed were the original four that we proposed was the opaque fence, no site lighting will be installed. The other conditions were added by staff as the TRC review process. And so that 14th, I would not like to speak for staff, but I would say that I'm sure that is just a UDO
In case.
condition, and it's a catch-all to make sure that any other lighting that would be required by NCDOT or anything like that would be directed not towards the neighbors, to have no site bleed off so that the residences are protected.
All right. Any other questions? And I know you stated twice that you and the applicant agree to all 14
We do.
conditions. Okay. Thank you. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak to this matter, please come forward and state your name and address, please.
How you doing?
Good.
How are you? Oh, we're fine. This is my husband, James Hyde, on Barbara Hyde. We're sort of concerned because we have the property located
Next to that.
in the back from what we see here. And this is a small business on 5 acres of land. So I'm concerned, if you look at it, I mean, we're sort of boxed in there in the back. Plus there are neighbors on the side. Is this a residential area or is it gonna be just strictly business? Because this is 5 acres of land. So we have, what is it?
10 and a half.
10 and a half in the back. So we're just trying to get an understanding, is this gonna be continuous with folks coming in, putting businesses there, or what?
You don't have a residence or anything on that 10 acres, do you?
We do not,
Okay.
but if you look to the right, you have some there. I think it's, if you facing the street, everything right to your right. That's
Has a
residential.
house and a trailer in that area too.
And then-
So I'm not sure, is your question, is the rest of this property on Highway 39 going to be developed? Or are you talking about specifically about this 5-acre tract?
Well, I'm trying to see what they're doing. We just got the notice, it's 5 acres, and I kept hearing it's gonna be a small business on 5 acres.
So you haven't seen this
We
drawing
have
with the
not.
proposed?
No.
Here, I'll let you, he's got one behind you. You, Braxton, can you talk him through that right quick?
This is 39.
Right.
This is the right, this, and this is the area.
Area right here. And our property is right here.
That would be correct.
Yeah, right here.
Right.
Okay.
And just to comment a little bit to your concerns, I can see where it would be concerning that we may be approving something that is general business in a highly residential area. I think taking into consideration, this is one of probably the best businesses, if we were going to approve one, that you would want, because it's going to be low impact, low traffic. It doesn't mean that we are now going to create a general business district in that area. You know, we can't say that other people will not, but with this type of business, it's typically one that you would almost want to see in the middle of a residential area versus a shopping mall or retail. So
Would there be fencing with this?
yes, there's fencing and listed in all of the conditions. So there would be some screening and fencing in the conditions that we've been presented.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Could I ask
Yes.
Braxton a question?
Yes.
Braxton, when they apply for conditional use, they're talking about one business.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Why are they dividing this into 2 separate lots?
I think well, I don't have that. One moment. That'd be a question for the applicant. I can't answer that.
I think to subdivide this into Lot 1 and Lot 2 is inconsistent with what they're asking for. And I don't see how we do that.
I would say, Mr. Messiah, would you mind if the applicant came back to speak to that? As you can see, I don't know if you can see on the drawing, but in the back, it had Lot 2 on the very back piece. Okay. We'll let the applicant
Okay.
answer that question for us.
Thank you for the question. There is a tax appraisal card, and on that tax appraisal card, the parcel has been has that line on there from a previous tax appraisal. So we did not remove that line, but the parcel is all considered one parcel. And
Would you
so
be opposed to removing that line?
we can remove the line as part of the final site plan approval process for the construction drawing plans that are signed by the staff. We would be happy to remove that line. That way it doesn't provide any confusion for anybody, but it is a line that was on there for the tax appraisal stuff. And
Would you
so
be
we can-
okay if we made that as a condition to this approval?
Yes, please add that. That's fine.
Okay. At the appropriate time, I'd like to move that line be moved, because if that line is removed and there's only one lot and there's only one business with a condition, I think this person's concern is there would be no future businesses. This is the only businesses that would ever be on this land.
And I think when you look at on GIS, it shows it as one parcel. It's not two lots, so it's one parcel, but I agree. And so I guess when we get to that point, we'll ask the applicant again, and they've already kind of agreed to that condition, so. All right, anyone else wishing to speak to this? And thank you, Mr. Marsai. All right, if not, I'll close the public discussion portion of this hearing and ask Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board's recommendations.
Yes, sir. As it relates to case 2023-03, Planning Board does recommend approval of the conditional zoning district with stated conditions 1 through 14, and offers for your consideration a statement of consistency.
All right, any last questions of Mr. Newton?
I make a motion to adopt the statement of consistency resolution as presented in the agenda packet and approve the rezoning request with the conditions as discussed and the one that Commissioner Smith added.
Do we need to be more specific on that?
Confirm that for purposes of clarification, that it's the removal of Lot 2, the lot line, and that it
Okay.
is one comprehensive parcel.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion to second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, next up, I will open conditional zoning district case 23-04. And Mr. Newton, I will call on you to present the case background and answer any questions we may have.
Yes, sir. Case 23-04 petition to rezone 5.885 acres located in the 11,000 block of Old Beale Road in O'Neill's Township from agriculture residential to industrial 1 conditional zoning. Owner and applicant is Kevin Creech. The conditional zoning request has a specified use of light general manufacturing for the local medical industry. The property is currently zoned AR and is used for agricultural residential purposes. Surrounding properties are zoned AR and used for such purposes as well. Old Beale Road sees about 650 cars per day. That's 2021 count, and it does not appear on our CDP as needing improvement. Our land use plan has this area noted as agriculture and rural conservation area. Be glad to answer any. Well, there are also 14 or 15 stated conditions there that were passed along by the planning board as well, with the owner's consent at the planning board. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions at this point for Mr. Newton?
Can you, just for everybody's clarification, explain a little bit what the landscape buffer C entails?
So the C is our most intensive landscape buffer, and it's going to consist of, I think it's 12 or 15. So you're looking at 15 trees for every 100 feet, 10 or 12 shrubs, and other plants of that, like in 2 different increments. So you've got a large shrub and a small shrub that is going to be required in any one given 100 feet. So you're going to see around 30, almost 40, 45 plants per 100 feet.
Great, thank you.
And we will work through the applicant. If if it's approved, we'll have to go through a commercial site plan review process and work with the applicant on that painting, as well as any needed berms if possible.
I think it's just good for people to hear that it's the strongest one we have when it's adjoining residential and we're mixing.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Newton? If not, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and present information regarding this case.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm Steve Oliverio. I'm with Bartlett Engineering, 1906 Nash Street in Wilson. Mr. Creech and his wife are here as well, the owner, to answer any questions you may have. We're in agreement with the staff report and reviewed all the conditions, and we don't have any issues with any of them. So we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Oliveria?
I do. There's an old pack house on that property. Is that going to be there or torn down or what?
I think it's going to remain, but I'll let
Okay.
the owner.
I didn't know if it's,
There are two shown, if you look at the aerial view, Kevin Creech, Old Beeler Road, sorry about that. But yes, there are two pack houses. One is in need of destruction now anyway. It's
Right.
currently rotten, has been
Yeah.
for years. There's one that will stay at least for a temporary time, till we can evaluate whether to put the money in to save it or,
right.
take it down so it's not an eyesore for the community,
Okay. Good. All right. Any other questions of the applicant?
No, just to clarify too, you live on the property next door, correct?
Yes, directly across the street.
So essentially you're creating a work from home atmosphere.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not like we're plopping industrial in the middle of a residential area. You're creating a work from home situation.
That's right, yes.
All right, and you are agreeable to the 15
Yes, sir.
conditions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to case number 23-04? All right. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public discussion portion of this hearing and ask Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board's recommendations.
Yes, sir. As it relates to case 23-04, planning board does recommend approval, offers for your consideration a statement of consistency and with the stated conditions of the 15 stated conditions in your staff report.
All right. Any final questions of Mr. Newton? All right. Then I will close the hearing and turn it over to the board for final deliberations or a motion.
I move to adopt the statement of consistency resolution as presented in the agenda packet to approve the rezoning request with the conditions as discussed.
Second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up, we have case 2305. I will now open the rezoning hearing and ask Mr. Newton to give us case background, and we'll ask any questions of him after he finishes.
Chairman, due to a conflict, I need to recuse myself from this case.
All right. Any objection to Commissioner Stevens recusing herself from this issue? All right. Mr. Newton.
All right. Case 23-05 is a petition to rezone 52 acres, and this is across 3 tracks at 2959 and 2925 Cornwallis Road in Cleveland Township, from agriculture residential to general business. Owner Glenn Ford Senior Living Trust, and the applicant is RHF Holdings LLC. The property is currently, or the majority of the property, the largest tract, which involves roughly 50 acres, is currently vacant. The other 2 parcels, I think, are in use with structure on them, and the traffic concerns and the property around it is zoned AR and used for agriculture residential purposes. There's also a church adjacent to or nearby, and general business, and this involves a quick service restaurant, a gas station, convenience store, a Dollar General, and a veterinary clinic. Traffic concerns for Cornwallis Road. It sees about 6,200 vehicles per day in this area. That's a 2021 count, and it does appear on our comprehensive transportation plan as a boulevard needing improvement. Property is located in a primary growth area per our land use plan, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Newton? All right, hearing none, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and speak to their case. And if you would, please state your name and address.
My name is Gene Singleton. I currently live in Wilmington, North Carolina. From Henderson, Vance County. Spent most of my life trying to grow up in Raleigh. So my partner, Paul, is from Charlotte. And obviously we're not local residents, but we are now paying a good amount of taxes here. And Ralph developed and owns the AutoZone, and has owned it for 20 years. I have a number of properties around the state that I've developed and owned for 20 to 30 years. And part of the reason I tell you that is because we develop to own long-term. And we think that's a differentiator. And we think people that do that start from day one, developing quality Class A spaces and operate them and maintain them in a like-new condition. And we've been successful doing that. And I don't know if some of you may not have seen the good press that we got from Chris Johnston's press release. So I'm going to show you, we're currently under construction with the site we bought from Marty Gilbert when you all granted us general business on Highway 42, 15 acres. And I'm pleased we got worked through the winter and got the roof on the first building. And so this shows you, and our intention is to build the same, this is a business park, 125,000 square feet, and we intend to do the same type of development on the 52 acres. And we've done some site analysis and some drawings, and we're showing 400,000 square feet. We know that's a big project. We've got 1,800 feet of frontage on Cornwallis, and we've got 4 different 25,000 foot buildings laid out, because we believe there's some demand currently for retail, and that will continue to grow. And with the proximity to the new interchange at Cleveland Road and 40, we think it's an ideal location for flex office space. And we will build the same quality that we're now under construction with.
If you would you hand one to the deputy clerk as you come around? Oops. Okay.
So
you can pass it, or we'll pass it up here then.
I appreciate your consideration. I'm happy to answer any and all questions. We don't seem to have any problems with the neighbors. We've met with several of them, and I've gotten support from several of them.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Singleton?
Mr. Braxton was reading out the different types of businesses. Is that what you perceive to be there, the Dollar General?
I know there's a lot of businesses that are approved under this approval, and there's a lot of them we have no interest in. You know, we're going to own the business park. We're going to have a number of tenants, and we're not going to lease out to anybody that's going to diminish the value of that business park.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Singleton.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else wishing to comment on this case, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Samuel Harris. I've been living out there for 35 years. The property they're talking about joins my property at the back. The businesses that y'all have been approving out there has been an asset to Johnston County residential people. And that's all I see this. This is would benefit the area. That's where the small businesses is popping up. And I'm just saying, I think it would be an asset for Johnston County in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there any questions for Mr. Harris? Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak to this? Yes, ma'am. Be sure and state your name and address, please.
My name is Patricia Godin. I'm at 3287 Cornwallis Road. And I respectfully address the commissioners and understand that the price of growth is development. I am about 500 feet away from where this development is projected. My concerns are twofold. First of all, the environmental impact of additional impervious surfaces that might create additional flooding on my property and the adjacent properties. The second impact that I'd like to address is, do we really need additional general business in our area? So I did a kind of quick dive into what was around me in a 2-mile radius of my house. And this is what I've come up with, and I'll cite my reference. It was Google Maps. Okay, fair enough. 38 restaurants, coffee shops, and taverns. 20 auto repair and detailing shops. 23 hairstylists and barbering shops. 5 grocery stores. 12 gas stations, 2 dollar stores, 4 pharmacies, 2 tattoo parlors, 4 dentists, 6 veterinarians, 1 attorney, and 19 places where I can do banking or ATM. I just question the need for more development in that area. I appreciate your consideration, and I thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening. My name is Darren Healy. I live on 3287 Cornwallis Road, and it's my wife that just spoke. So, like her, I do have concerns about environmental impact and specifically the flooding issue and the traffic. The flooding issue is a particular concern when we take into conjunction the state project that for the roundabout that is happening at Cornwallis Road and Josephine Road. And that project is TIP project W5704G, if you want to reference that. There is significant stormwater upgrades that are happening on Cornwallis Road. The problem is that with the addition of the impervious surfaces upstream, it's all flowing down towards my house, okay? And it got a little scary when Hurricane Michael came through, you know, and I had to watch, you know, my yard flooded, you know, 10 feet from my house. So it is of concern, and I would ask the commission to consider the project with those kind of implications and in conjunction with this other project that I had mentioned. I think that's all I have to say.
All right. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to this case? All right, seeing no one come forward, I will close the public discussion portion of this hearing and call for Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board's recommendations.
Sir, as it relates to case 23-05, Planning Board does recommend approval and offers for your consideration a statement of consistency.
All right, any final questions of Mr. Newton?
Mr. Newton, it's correct to say that rezoning the general business will allow any kind of business that's properly listed as conditional uses for that.
In any use that is permitted by right within our table of uses under that category, yes, sir, would be allowed.
All right, any other questions? All right, if not, I want to close the hearing and turn it over to the board for further deliberations and/or a motion. And I would just say that we just had a case a few minutes ago where we had the same thing, general business in an area that is surrounded by primarily residential. We've got, as Commissioner Smith had said, they had an opportunity to come forward with a conditional zoning. It sounds like they know what they want to do. I'm kind of the same opinion. To be consistent, as we've looked at, there's many uses that could be there, and I would rather see have us know what that use is going to be before we approve it in an area that is surrounded by residential.
I agree, Mr. Chairman. We went down that road earlier, so I agree 100%.
And I would just say, so some of the concerns, I know we saw office building, but I don't know what the wastewater request would be for that. And I also don't know what, with the traffic impact, what that would be at this point. So I would say those would be my two primary reasons for, in addition, that I'm not sure general business and what would be in there would be compatible with the residents, although I do think your project, as you presented it, would probably be a fine project. We just don't have all the information for that. Richard?
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Chairman. The one distinction I draw different, though, from a while ago that would maybe discount that inconsistency is the fact that this is a much larger parcel and it's its own thing. You know, it's not something put in the middle of something else. It's its own location, its own shopping center, if you will, or whatever, as opposed to a business being thrust into the middle of a residential area. It's its own area. But I too would like to see a more finished product.
All right, any other comments? Anyone care to make a motion? All right.
Out of a move to be consistent, I move to adopt a statement of consistency resolution that the use is not in the public interest, and further that the use is not consistent with a comprehensive land use plan, and request denial until we know what's going to be there.
All right, do I hear a second? I know it's not customary for the chair to make a second, but I can make a second, and I will second that motion. So, any other discussion?
Maybe a moot point, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't want to take the motion, Mr. Chairman. So.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table for denial for the reasons stated. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Preston, you can have a seat. I think you've earned your keep.
Painting myself in the corner there.
Yeah. So, all right. I will turn it over to the manager for his comments.
Good evening, board members. Just wanted to update you on the county's work with the school system on the 2022 bond referendum projects. We work very closely with them and coordinate sales, and they have a very aggressive schedule that I think in about a year they'll have bids on. Do want to make you aware of the fact that on the 2018s, there is some, due to escalating costs and that type thing, they do have a gap there of about $12 million as it stands today. And so I just wanted to kind of brief you on that, and I'm sure there'll be some more discussions on that.
All right.
Mr. Lester, as we move along, more involved in school bonds, and when we talk about 2018, the way we sell bonds and everything in projects, moving that far behind, is there a way around that, or just
Generally speaking, we sell referendums over about a 3 or 4 year period. We used to work that timing with the school system and how can it work with our model and those things of that nature. So I think the 2022s will move along a little a little faster than that, unless there's something that comes up unexpected.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to comment on that briefly. There are discussions with school board folks on how to best address that, and they're not coming asking at this point. They're just trying to work through how to deal with it.
Just being transparent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I did want to back up a minute. There was a case 23-06, and that has been postponed at the request of the applicant until the April 3rd meeting at 6 o'clock. So did want to back up and get that in. Now I'll turn it over to the board for any reports or comments.
We have from time to time requests for solar panel farms, solar farms in the county. And I'm not sure if we address that in a manner that would tell us how everybody wants to get them started and get them online, but they do have a lifespan, and I'm just wondering, do we have a policy in place, or do we need to put a policy in place that either someone puts up a bond or someone is required to in some way protect the interest of the people that they've rented from over a period of time to be left with somewhat hazardous material at times on property that, we're not really ready. We don't really know. We don't have a game plan. I'd like to see us start developing a game plan for that.
I think we went down the road on that a few years back, Counselor, on the requirement to clean and the salvage and how to best handle that.
Yes, sir. Most of those were approved as conditional use zonings or special uses back before the ordinance changed. And part of those conditions do address the remediation. There is not a bond requirement that is associated with that, but there are protections as part of that special use that the property is to be restored and those sorts of things once the use no longer happens. One of the issues with requiring a financial security or bond or that sort of thing is the life of these projects are so long that it's very difficult to get a bond for that length or that period of time.
Well,
we did explore that some time ago.
My concern is if you have an entity that comes in, rents the land, because what I'm seeing now is there's so many LLCs and sudden corporations that just form overnight for the sole purpose of operating a solar farm. And I have a bar pit. We have to put a bond up every year for the longevity of the operation of that. If it's 40 years, 50 years, whatever, you renew that bond every year. And I'm just saying that if these people file bankruptcy and leave, that conditional permit ain't gonna do us a whole lot of good. Am I wrong?
I will say, when we had a mining permit case in front of us tonight, I know the state requires a reclamation bond just for that purpose, but
every year.
And those kind of now renew annually with payments. So, but it's not. I think those things are solar farms are like 100 years. So I don't know how we do that, but
40
I do not.
Years, 40 years.
40 years. Okay, so that's a little bit more reasonable. This still is. I just know from my experience in the mining industry, there is a reclamation bond to take care of the land after the
most of them are looking for 20 years with 2 10-year renewables.
Okay. So maybe that's something we can consider as we look at our ordinances sometime in the not too distant future.
Yes, sir. I think that's something we can actually go ahead and look at now and
Okay.
kind of rectify that and bring back some language. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Commissioner Godwin?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Brad some questions. We've probably talked about this and refresh my memory. We've had several discussions recently from citizens who live in subdivisions that their roads deteriorating and not qualified for DOT takeover. Where are we? How do we avoid that? At one time, we didn't permit so many houses in there until the road was in. Was there a problem with doing it that way? Seems Seems like there was.
Yes, sir. There was a little bit of a legal quagmire, and that was, it was deemed we can't actually do that. So, that's it's difficult to deal with, to be honest with you, to force their hand to turn these roads over to DOT, these streets over to DOT. I say now we see, I mean, you obviously see the road dedications coming through,
Yeah.
or street dedications coming through, and they're quite numerous. So I don't think we have as big of an issue. However, it's kind of hard. It's hard because DOT has specific requirements on when they can be dedicated, when they'll accept them. There has to be development. There has to be development that's occurring on these streets to their standards.
We've had some of these that happened in the past, and that's water over the dam. But it never should happen in the future, in my opinion. We ought to be able to exercise some kind of leverage so that people don't buy a house in good faith with a good road that's not state maintained.
So we've looked at some options. We just haven't found a really viable option where we're on strong legal footing yet. But we're still exploring that because we do have those issues.
Right.
Now, for those citizens or those residents that are having issues where the roads haven't been maintained either by the developer or an HOA, or the HOA's gone defunct, then, we do have a residential paving program that offers some assistance, not a huge amount of assistance. However, obviously, with the cost of paving and rehabbing these roads, these streets, it's extremely expensive.
Right.
We understand that. And the difficulty for us as a county versus a municipality is we don't have that authority to maintain and operate public right-of-way.
Right. If we require them to put the streets in turnkey, everything's done before the first house is built on it, that still doesn't mean they're going to turn them over to the DOT. Is that right?
That's correct. So once again, once the roads are done, and most of them are done, and usually you will find if there's the early phases, they may wait to do, say, a final lift of asphalt, just because you don't want to tear up that asphalt prematurely with construction traffic in and out on future phases or subsequent phases. So, but most of them are typically done. Look at a smaller subdivision, 20, 25, 30 lots. Generally speaking, they'll develop the entire subdivision at once.
And I can see DOT, they don't want to take it over so there's no houses on it.
They don't, no.
All right.
They don't.
Catch-22.
It's difficult, yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Vice Chairman Harris?
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
No, sir, I'm good.
All right. Commissioner
I have
Timmons?
a follow-up from this morning for those that listened. We have been on the hunt to find some local heroes who helped a family get out of a burning vehicle. It was at the Federal Road and Elevation Road intersection, and we have identified one individual who was comfortable being named, and so I just wanted to publicly commend Angie Crisp for helping get this family out of that vehicle. And if anybody knows anybody else that helped the family, would really like to thank them. So if we could just get the word out, I'm very excited to work on promoting some of our local neighbors that go out of their way to help another neighbor. So just wanted to update you on that.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Smith? And I don't have anything either, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.